When you think of Stalin, one word comes to mind: fear. But behind the Iron Curtain of the USSR were orders so shocking, so ruthless, that even his closest allies trembled. Today, we're diving into 5 orders by Joseph Stalin that will leave you questioning the limits of power and control. But before we start, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our deep dives into history's most shocking events. In 1937, Stalin signed Order Number 307, which specifically targeted enemies of the people within the Red Army. Almost overnight, thousands of military officers, including highly decorated generals, were accused of treason, often without any real evidence. The arrests were carried out in secret, and many officers were executed within days, leaving entire military units leaderless. Even the most loyal and trusted officers were not safe. Some officers who had fought bravely in the Civil War, earning medals and public recognition, were suddenly labeled traitors and shot. Families were left in shock, and the climate of suspicion spread so far that even ordinary soldiers feared speaking their minds. Loyalty did not protect anyone. It became a liability. How would you react if your closest allies could be accused of treason overnight? Could you survive in a world where even loyalty could get you executed? In the late 1920s, Stalin issued a decree forcing all peasants to join collective farms, known as kolkhozes. Millions of individual farmers lost their land, livestock, and personal property almost overnight. Resistance wasn't tolerated. Entire villages that refused were burned, and their inhabitants were deported to remote regions like Siberia or Kazakhstan. What most people don't realize is that this massive upheaval didn't just target the wealthiest farmers. Even small, struggling peasants, those with just a few animals, were labeled kulaks and punished. Families were torn apart, and children were sent to state orphanages. This policy didn't just change agriculture. It instilled a deep fear that anyone, regardless of their social status, could be next. Imagine losing your home, your farm, and your family simply because the government decided it was better for the state. How would you respond if your life could be erased overnight by a single decree? Could you resist, or would fear force you to obey? Stalin classified the wealthier peasants, known as kulaks, as enemies of the state. But it wasn't just a label. Entire families were forcibly removed from their homes, their land confiscated, and their possessions destroyed. Villages were divided into lists of dangerous and safe households, with the dangerous ones marked for deportation or execution. What's shocking is that many of these kulaks weren't particularly wealthy. They might have just had a slightly larger cow or a bigger barn. Yet this small difference was enough for the NKVD, secret police, to brand them class enemies. In some cases, entire communities turned against each other, denouncing neighbors over trivial property disputes, fueling a wave of paranoia and betrayal across the countryside. Imagine your neighbor being taken away just for owning a few extra cows. How far would fear drive people to betray those closest to them? Could you survive in a society where even small differences put your life at risk? During the Great Terror of 1937 to 1938, Stalin issued secret orders targeting so-called hostile elements in urban areas. These weren't just criminals or political opponents. Ordinary citizens could be labeled hostile for the smallest perceived disloyalty. Schools, workplaces, and apartment buildings became hotspots for surveillance. What's shocking is that neighbors, colleagues, and even family members were actively encouraged to report each other. A casual remark at work, a joke in the street, or even a private disagreement at home could trigger arrest. People vanished overnight, often leaving their families with no explanation. Fear and paranoia replaced trust in every corner of the city. Imagine living in a city where anyone around you could betray you for survival. How would you even know whom to trust? Could society function if fear was stronger than loyalty? Many of Stalin's closest comrades, veterans of the 1917 revolution who had fought alongside him and helped establish the USSR, were arrested in the late 1930s. Figures like Lev Kamenev, Grigory Zinoviev, and Nikolai Bukharin, who had once been heroes of the revolution, suddenly became enemies of the state. Despite their loyalty and decades of service, these men were put on show trials where evidence was fabricated, confessions were coerced, and sentences were predetermined. Some were forced to denounce each other publicly before being executed. Stalin essentially turned his closest allies into pawns in a terrifying game of paranoia, proving that even revolutionary loyalty offered no protection. How would you react if those you trusted most could suddenly become your enemies overnight? Could loyalty survive in a world ruled by fear? These orders weren't just laws, they were instruments of terror, reshaping society through fear and obedience. Stalin's reign shows us the terrifying power of unchecked authority. Which of these orders shocked you the most, and why? Comment below. Let's discuss the dark side of history together. If you found this video shocking and want more content like this, don't forget to subscribe and join our community of history explorers.